Authentication allows we as a developer to know our users and provide them with personalized features. Authentications also allows us to keep our application's data secure and make our application trustworthy. So, in this tutorial, we are going to learn to use Firebase Authentication to authenticate our users in our Flutter applications. Hello, welcome to React Bits. Together, we will learn to develop modern, robust, and beautiful applications. In order to integrate Firebase Authentication in our applications, the first thing we need to do is create a Firebase project and enable authentication. So, let's get started. First, go to console.firebase.google.com. If you have not logged in, log in with your Google ID. Then press Create a Project. Enter the project name. Here we enter Flutter Fire Auth and check I accept checkbox. Then press Continue. It will ask us to set up Google Analytics. For now, we'll just skip it. It will now create our Firebase project. It will take some time. Once it is complete, press the Continue button to go to our new Firebase project. In there, now go to Develop. Inside that, Authentication from your left sidebar. And in there, go to the Sign In Method tab. Here we can enable various sign-in providers. For now, first we'll enable email and password based sign-in. For that, we will press edit icon at the right side of the email password provider and turn on the enable switch. Next, we will enable Google authProvider. It will ask us the project's public facing name. We will name it Flutter Firebase Auth, and then we'll select the project support email from the drop-down list. Finally, we'll add a test user for email password based sign-in method. For that, go to Users tab and there on the right press Add User button, and you can now provide the email and password for the login. So here we'll just provide test@testmail.com and password as testtest1 and click Add User button. Now, let us begin with our Flutter project. First, we'll create a new Flutter project with Android X enabled. For that, we'll use the command flutter create --Android X and our project name as Flutter Fire Auth. This should create your new Flutter project. First thing we'll do is we'll download the Firebase project configuration and add it to our project. For that, go to the project overview page and in there where there is a list of apps, click on the Android icon. It will now ask for our Android package name. We can find that in our project inside Android folder, app folder, build.gradle file in line number 41. So, copy the application ID inside the double quotation mark and paste it in Android package name field in the Firebase. And in the application name field, we'll just place Flutter Firebase Auth app. And finally, we need the debug key, Android debug key, in order for Google sign-in to work. To get the debug key, we use the key tool to list our certificate. After entering the command, it will ask for the password of the key store. The password for Android debug key store is simply Android. When you enter the password, it will show the certificate fingerprints. From there, just copy the SHA1 fingerprint and paste it in the debug key hash field and press register app. Then download Google services.json file. Now we need to add the config file to our Flutter project. For that, just drag the config file you downloaded inside Android inside app folder. Now it is time to add the required dependencies for Firebase Authentication and Google Sign-in in our project. First, let us add Firebase Auth. From pub.dev, search Firebase Auth and open the link, and in installing tab, copy the following line and add it under our dependencies in povspec.yaml file. Similarly, you can do the same for Google Sign-In. Finally, now run flutter packages get or press this little download icon at the top in your VS Code. Now we need to configure the build config for Firebase Authentication to work. To do that, let's check under the usage description in the Firebase Auth plugin. For that, we need to modify build.gradle file inside our Android folder as well as the one inside our Android inside app folder. So first, let us add the dependency for Google services in our Android build.gradle. And then apply the Google Services plugin by adding the following line at the end of the Android app build.gradle file. Now, if you are already running the project, just end and rebuild again, because we have added the native dependencies. We have to rebuild the application. Now, we are ready to build the UI. We will create 3 different pages: home page, a splash screen, and a login page. So inside our lib folder, let us create a UI folder, and inside that, let us create 3 files: home.dart, splash.dart, and login.dart. Let us first create the splash page. For that, we'll create a stateless widget. And then in the build, let us return a scaffold with a child of safe area, and inside which we'd like to add a container, and in that let us add a column with a circular progress indicator and a text that says loading. Let us wrap our safe area with another container and give it a background color of theme's primary color. And give a style to our text and color it white with font weight of 400 and font size of 18 point. Let us now remove the demo code from our main.dart file, and in place of the current home page, let us just put our splash page so that we can preview it. we are unable to see our circular progress indicator, so we need to change the background color. Let us make it white. Let us add a little bit of distance between the text loading and the circular progress indicator by using a sized box with a height of 10 point. We are now done with our splash page. Now let us work on the home page. For home page, we'll just create a simple stateless widget with an app bar that says the home page and a body with single child scroll view and column inside which we put a text called home page. This is just a sample. You can make anything just to let us know that we have logged in and we are in our home page. In main.dart, in place of a splash page, let us place our home page to see the preview. Finally, it is time to work on our login page. Let us instantiate a stateless widget first, and now create a body with a scaffold inside which in the body we place a single child scroll view with a child of column, and the children of column will be the text fields. First, let us convert our login page into a stateful widget. Let us now create two text editing controllers for our email field and password field. And in the init state, let us initialize our two controllers as the new instance of text editing controller. First, let us create an email field and provide it a controller as email controller and a hint text with input decoration, a hint text of enter your email. Let us now duplicate the email field and separate it by a sized box of height 10, and then rename the duplicated text field as password field. In the password field, set obscure text property as true. Now let us add a rest button, a login button. With a child of text login and a non-pressed. For now, we would just like to print login pressed. In the main.dart, now in place of home page, replace it with login page to see the preview. Tapping the login button now prints login pressed, so the function is working. Now we need to add certain padding to our column to make it look better. Let us wrap our column widget with a padding widget and provide a padding of all sides 16 point. Let us give a top margin of 100 pixels, and below that let us put a text login, style the text, make it bold and increase the font size to 20 points. And separate the login text and the text field with another sized box of height 20 points. Now let us create a utils folder inside our lib folder inside which we'll create a Firebase _ auth the dart file in which we'll create our authentication related functions. In Firebase auth.dart, let us create a class called authProvider, inside which we'll instantiate _auth as Firebase auth instance. And then we'll create a sign in with email function that takes two arguments, email and password. Both are string. Make this an async function inside which we will call Firebase auth.signin with email and password function and pass in the email and password parameters. The sign in with email and password function returns a future of type auth result. So we'll await to get the auth result from the function. We'll initialize a Firebase user as authResult.user. Let us wrap the functionality with try catch to avoid any exceptions. We'll change our sign-in function to return a future of type bool, and then in try block we'll return true and in catch block we'll return false. Our Firebase user variable is unused. Yes, we need to check if the user is null or not. If the user is not null, we have successfully signed in, so we return true. Otherwise, we return false. Now, let us go back to our login page, and in onPressed function of our login button, let us now call our sign in with email and password function from our authProvider class and pass in the email controller.text and password controller.text as the parameters. Let us also do a little bit of validation. If email controller.text is empty or password controller.text is empty, for now we'll just print that both the values are required. We will only call the sign in method if both the email and password field are not empty. If we press the login button now with both the fields empty, we can see our error message printed on the debug console. Let us now type something. When we type on the email field, the password field is getting the same value. This is because we forgot to change the controller in our password field. So let us change the controller of our password field as password controller and then hot restart our app. Also, let us change our onPressed function to async function so that we can await our call to sign in method and check for the result. So we'll await the call to the sign in method and assign a result to a boolean variable and check if the result is false. Then for now we print login failed. Finally, in our main.dart, let us create one more wizard that will check the authentication state and build the wizard accordingly. For that, we'll create a stateless widget called main screen, and in the build, we will use stream builder. The stream will be the Firebase on auth state change stream. And in the builder method, we get two parameters. First, a build context, and second, the asynchronous snapshot of our Firebase user. In builder, if snapshot.hasData is false, that is, if not snapshot.hasData, then we'll return splash page. And if snapshot.data is null, that is, the Firebase user is null, then we'll return login page. Otherwise, we'll return the home page. Now, in the build section of my app under home property, change from login page to main screen. It is now always showing the splash page. We need to make some adjustment in our main screen. So in the builder function in our main screen, let us check the connection state of our snapshot. So if snapshot.connection step is equal to connection state.waiting, only then we'll return splash page. And if not snapshot.hasData or snapshot.data is null, then we'll return login screen. And finally, we'll return the home page. Now, let us test our login functionality with the test user we created earlier. Enter the email as test@testmail.com and password as testtest1 and press the login button. The application now should successfully redirect to home page. Let us now add a logout functionality. For that, in our home page, under the text home page, we'll add a raised button with child of text logout, and in onPressed, we'll call the authProvider's logout function. We don't have the logout function yet, so let us create our logout function. Inside which we will await the call to _auth.signout and wrap it in a try catch block in order to catch the exceptions. Let us now test the logout button. Pressing the logout button successfully redirects the app to the login page. We are now ready to add sign in with Google functionality. So let's get back to our login.dart, and below the login text, we'll add a raised button with a child of text login with Google. And in onPressed function, let us call authProvider.login with Google method. We don't have the function yet, so let us go to our authProvider and add the function login with Google, which again returns a feature of type bool and doesn't take any parameters. First, let us import Google Sign-In from Google Sign-In package. And in login with Google method, let us first instantiate the Google Sign-In object. And call the sign-in method of the Google Sign-In object, which returns a feature of type Google Sign-In account. Let us await and get the Google Sign-In account in a variable. So we change the login with Google into a async method. Now, if account is null, we just return false. But if it is not null, we can now use the account to sign in to the Firebase. To do that, we use sign in with credential method from the Firebase auth. That requires an instance of auth credential class as its parameter. We will use Google authProvider class get credential method to get a credential from ID token and access token. We can get the ID token and access token from our Google Sign-In account by awaiting the Google Sign-In account's authentication method. So await account.authentication.access token and .id token. The sign-in with credential method from Firebase auth again returns a feature of type auth result. So let us await and assign the result to a result variable. Finally, we'll check if rest.user is null, then we'll return false. Otherwise, we will return true. And in catch block, we will now just print error logging in with Google and return false. In the login.dart, in our login with Google button, change the onPress method to asynchronous function and await the result of our login with Google function so that we can check if the authentication was successful. If not, we can just print that authentication failed. Finally, let us test our login with Google button. Press login with Google. Choose one of your Google accounts. Voila, we have successfully logged in with Google.